welcome and thank you for joining our workshop this year. It's a workshop that's going to involve heavily ShapeDiver. So I hope that I hope that everyone's a Grasshopper user at least. That's the minimum requirement. And about ShapeDiver, I'll quickly, sum up, what we do and the basic principles. But this year, I thought about the workshop about, introducing some pretty advanced concepts, a bit innovative workflows that one can build with Grasshopper and with the infrastructure of ShapeDiver. So yeah, we're gonna, after I do a general introduction, we're gonna move on to this quite new features. And let's say that, I hope that everyone can follow and already test and build interesting things with what we're gonna see today. Otherwise, just I'm gonna go quite slow so that everyone can at least get inspired and see the potential of this sort of new workflows we're allowing. We're not so many people, so I invite you, especially if you're following on Grasshopper at the same time, to interrupt me and ask questions and ask me to repeat also if something is not so clear. But yeah, otherwise, let's get started. So yeah, just a brief summary of how it's gonna go. So I won't take too long. I think like 20 minutes maximum to give some context about ShapeDiver, about what the general principles of ShapeDiver, and especially the app builder framework, which we've developed in the past year and a half, 2 years, which is now becoming the main way to use ShapeDiver and create online applications based on Grasshopper models. And then once we have the background with these concepts, then I'll start slowly to introduce the features we call instancing, which allows to build online applications in a modular way based on different Grasshopper models uploaded to ShapeDiver, so different algorithms, and how that allows to really work in a modular way, especially when you're working in teams where you can spread the work, compartmentalize parts of bigger workflows, bigger algorithms, or reuse specific unit algorithms, let's say. And how that also allows to more easily, organize the bigger workflows, maintain them, update new versions of them, etc. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'll start by giving a quick overview of ShapeDiver and the basic principles of ShapeDiver and of the app builder. So I will start sharing my screen. Do you see it? I think it works. And do you see on the side of my screen this the pictures of everyone, the videos? Yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be difficult for me to only share one tab or one software because I'm moving between Rhino and the browser and stuff, so I have to share my entire screen. So I'll just minimize this and is there a way to really minimize it so that it's very small? I'm not sure. Yeah, not really. Okay, so I'll just minimize it completely, and if there's questions, then you can just start your mic, or there might be a way to.
Matthew, we only see the Rhino and the Grasshopper side by side. Is it correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what I want to show for
okay.
now. Yeah. All right, so ShapeDiver. As I think probably all of you know, at this point, ShapeDiver is a way to create Grasshopper definitions and upload them online to turn them into online applications, which can be consumed through a web browser, but also there's other ways through APIs. Essentially, it makes them remote APIs which one can interact with and integrate in online applications or in different contexts. And the way it works at the core level is that one can, so I created this small one, which we're going to reuse today. So a very, very small definition where you have a couple of traditional standard parameters, so sliders and a color here, creating just a box. Using here the ShapeDiver display components to create the visual assets that are going to be shown in the online application. And I also include a different second output here, the volume of the box, just as a random piece of data that can be also output in the definition. And this very simple Grasshopper definition, if you upload it online, so let me go here. I already uploaded most of what I'm talking about now, but when we go step by step and build something later, I'm gonna upload in real time as well, so that if you want to follow, you can also do it. So here, the small definition I just showed, if you upload it to ShapeDiver, you'll see the parameters that I just showed in Grasshopper, the color and the two sliders. And there's also here the data output, the volume of the current box is shown here. And that's on the core level how ShapeDiver works. And here what I'm showing is, let's say, the standard, what we call now the legacy way to interact with online applications created with ShapeDiver. Actually, this view here, we call it the model view. So it's that's what we used to call a ShapeDiver model. And you can see that there's automatically, when you upload this file to the platform, it comes with a viewer showing whatever you sent to this ShapeDiver display component, and it's showing a standard user interface here with the parameters, and the parameters that are shown and the way they're organized is the standard automatically organized way when you're just using the standard Grasshopper components and the standard ShapeDiver display components inputs and outputs. So in this case, you see the three parameters here, width, height, and color, in this order because they're in this order on the canvas. And yeah, there's some general principles on how this definition simply is converted into an online application. But now, what you might have heard about is that we have, since several months now, I stopped counting at some point, but I think it's almost 2 years since we released the first version of the app builder. We have we added a way in the plugin to control a bit deeper the way the final online application works, and to control not only, which parameters are shown and the geometry that's shown, but also the full layout and the logic of the entire interface of the online application. And to go to this version of ShapeDiver-based online application, in the future, it's going to be the main way. But for now, we have these links that lead from the model view page, or also from your library. If you upload files, you can directly open the final app from the library here, open app. And you can get to this new view of how ShapeDiver-based online applications look like. And in this case, for this very small definition here that I showed, this is the online application, and it looks pretty much, it looks a bit different in terms of style, but in terms of contents and layout and how things are organized, it maps one-to-one with the view I just showed in the platform, which means that you have the viewer here on the left, and here the parameters tab with the three parameters that we've just reviewed in the same order, right? And that's because the ShapeDiver apps, what we call apps now, there's, for all models, an app exists, even if you've not used the specific app builder components, right? So it's right now, if you haven't used the app builder components at all, the app that you get is going to be it's going to be built around the same logic that our old model view page was built. But you can, and here I can do it. That's the first thing I can do it live based on this very simple model. The principle is that here we have now this app builder category in the plugin, and this app builder category allows to organize completely the way the interface can look. And so I can here go from this very simple app. It's not going to go very far because it's a very, very small app, but show how I can a bit manipulate the way the final app looks, right? So I can here, so the way to build an app is through a tree, essentially, right? So you always have to add this app component. As soon as you add it, the platform knows, for this model, the user wants to build a specific interface, a specific layout for the app, and this is what I have to follow when I display the app online. And it's going to be built around a tree structure. So in my app, I can have containers. Let's say here I'm going to do it. I'm going to overdo it because it's a very simple app, but just to show how it works, I'm going to build an app with 2 containers, one on the left and one on the right. Add the second one. And I think that's for some of you, if you've already used App Builder, for now it's very simple, but it's always good to start a bit simple and slow because it's gonna get harder in a second. Okay, so here, let's say I want in my left container to add a controls widget. The controls widget is the widget that's going to be in the interface of my online app, where the end user will be able to control things, whether it be parameters directly or buttons, export to export files, anything that the user can interact with can go in a control widget. And in my control widget, in this case, what I want is just to add a couple of parameters. So I'm going to add a parameter control, actually 2. And the way to add parameters to the interface is to reference them by the name here. And let's say just to really insist on the fact that I can curate and decide exactly what I show in my app, I'm just going to add 2 of the 3 parameters here. For example, the width and the color. Trying to stay organized. And that's it. And in my right container, I'm gonna just add. So again, trying to make it a bit interesting. Let's say what I want is to add a text widget that I can always use to show some information, and the text widget that I can add to the interface can support Markdown. So I can let's say volume of the box and the line break, and I'm sending my volume here. So again, very not so interesting, but just to show how this all works. I'm gonna save this file and upload this new version to the platform. I'm working not currently in Rhino 8, but everything is compatible with Rhino 7 and 8 and even 6, but I confess I didn't try it in Rhino 6 in a long time. So if you're using it, it's at your own risk. But 7 and 8 should work fine. And here, so if you see how it looks after you upload the model, it looks exactly like the last one, right? So again, this page now, this view page here is sort of a transition phase. It's still here because we're not done transitioning to apps completely, but it's going to be replaced. After you upload, the main way is going to be to go directly to the app, especially if you've built an app, that's what you expect to see on the platform. So in this case, I'm going to open the app that I built, and you're going to see that. So again, this can be improved, but I get an app with a layout that I just defined with the two parameters I decided to show in the left container, and on the right, a small text widget with a title and the volume. All right. So just, I don't want to spend too much more time on the basic app builder concepts, but of course, here I have, well, I already have a dynamic interface because, of course, my text widget, responds to a state, right? So it's going to show it shows a different volume for different sizes of the box, right? So you can see it's already a contextual interface, but you can also imagine that everything it's sort of a parametric web application, right? So everything is parametric. I can decide to show or hide different parameters depending on the state of what's happening on my screen. Even the layout can change. I can hide and show different parts, different containers, etc. So it can really be parameterized from Grasshopper, the full application here. All right, so that's it in a nutshell for the basic way to work with App Builder. And actually, what we are going to do now is to look at how the latest extensions we've added to the App Builder. And if you're not so familiar with App Builder, we're gonna see more examples of how to work with all of these components during the workshop. But the main topic today is to see how, with the latest developments, one can work with App Builder in a modular way to create big workflows in big apps that connect different algorithms together. And to introduce this, I'll show a few models that I prepared. And at first, my goal during the workshop was directly to work with you on this example to make it so that it's not just boxes flying around, because that's usually what I do in all my tutorials and stuff. But I realized I can show you quickly how the models work. Here it's actually not too big, but building from scratch, I think we're gonna spend a lot of time looking at tree structures and doing some gymnastics in Grasshopper and stuff, and that's not really the point of the workshop. So I'm just gonna show the setup and how everything is connected together, and I think it's going to be more useful if I start from scratch as well. So I'm going to start from scratch with something simple that just shows all the concepts I want to show today and can inspire, on how to apply this in different contexts. So I'm going to show the uploaded versions of these algorithms. And here you can see how I have 4 different models here that I uploaded a bit earlier today. I have one model that represents a facade of a building, and one represented a window, parametric window, and I have 2 models representing balconies here, right? And the idea that we'll see here, I'm going to open directly the final app, and we're going to actually see the main. It's going to be annoying because I have to go down a bit every time. The main important point of today is that so I could have done that with the current deployed on production features of ShapeDiver, but it makes it much more simpler and user-friendly with the latest changes we did. And these changes are not deployed yet to production. So the only thing that we need to do today when opening apps is switch from the latest here. So in the URL of apps, when you open them, it always says latest, and to switch to development, the development branch here, which has all the features we need, and these features are going to be released on the production branch in the next few days anyways. But I tried to push the team so that we had this before the workshop, but it was a bit risky to push everything before full testing was done. So we work on the development branch, and at least you can feel special to see in prime time very cutting edge new features of ShapeDiver. Okay, so here is my very interesting facade model, and you can already see that I have a model where here I just have my facade as I built. I can open the model alone in the platform. This is a model that just really contains planes for each wall and each level. So there's different levels for the wall. But that's all this, what we call the controller model, the main model contains in terms of geometry, there's not more. And we can see that in the final app here, I use my my window model, which I uploaded already, and I instantiate it in my model and map it so that I can control it and integrate it as part of my scene of the final app. So that's one thing that I'm doing here. And the second thing is that, so here my facade, I can control it through a floor plan here. So it's, and I can update how it looks like this. And now I also have a selection input. So we're gonna see again, like these features, we're gonna see them today as well. So they're already released ShapeDiver features, but we make use of them in this model. And here I have an input where I can select different parts of my geometry in the scene. Let's see here and here. And here I'm instantiating my other ShapeDiver model that's creating parametric balconies, right? So here I have two instances, and you can see that so I can play on some parameters, and here in this case the parameters apply to all of the different instances of the balcony I have in the scene. But you can see that these balconies are not calling. So just to go back and we'll see these different examples in the examples we'll work around. The windows here are just calling a single instance of another ShapeDiver model and just transforming the same results in different locations in the scene, right? So it's optimized because I'm just calling one instance, getting the result and mapping it in different transformed locations. In the case of my balcony here, you can see that since the length of those two walls is different, we're actually making use of two different instances. It's the same ShapeDiver model, right? I uploaded it somewhere, it's stored. But here I actually have, so in total here I have 4 sessions of different, Grasshopper models stored on ShapeDiver that I'm putting together to create the final result here. And I can even do more than that, right? I can add a lot of balconies here. And in this case, each of them maps to a different instance. So we're really seeing the power of the infrastructure in the back, which has, like a lot of workers taking requests all the time from Grasshopper definition, so online. And so here, for example, just changing the height of the balcony, since all of those are different instances, it's calling 5 different ShapeDiver models now, updating them, sending back the result in the same scene, and showing the updated result. Right. So again, I don't know if I got anyone excited or if this model, if you'd like to work on this model. I think in the context of this workshop, it would be spending a bit too much time again, like mostly the scene trees, because even myself, I'm losing a lot of time, like mapping everything as it needs to be. So I think it would be a shame. So what I'm gonna do is that we have a Google Drive that David created for the workshops, and I'm gonna put something that so again I'm gonna finish that. So I'm gonna put all of the files so that after the workshop, if you want to go further, you can look at these files and see how I built this example. Essentially, we're gonna use the same feature and do the same kind of stuff, but on simpler geometry and simpler content. But I wanted to show a last thing. As you've seen here, I have 2 different balcony models. I have my one with the railings and stuff, and I actually have this other model that's like a very simple massing for a sketch of a balcony. And actually, I wanted to show and this is the first way I can show the modularity of this approach, right? So here, if I have this model uploaded and I take this the URL of the model uploaded online, and I can go to my facade model here. I go edit it, and here, so it's kind of a mess here, so don't look too close. But here I have the balcony URL, so that's the URL of the model of the balcony I'm using. So I can replace it, just replace it now. And now if I reload my full model here, right? So, okay, that still works. And if I build some balconies now, it's going to build balconies based on my other models, right? And this model happens to have the same. So that's, that's a key to the modularity. Actually, no, because here I didn't build this very well because the Rails parameter does not exist in this model. It just exists in the other one. But those two are parameters, it's another model, but with the same parameter names and also with the same outputs in case outputs are needed to be used in the parent model. So I can easily replace and have this modular part of my entire workflow. Easy to maintain, easy to replace, easy to update, without having to dig in the full model and update everything, which can be risky, which can be heavy, which is a maintenance nightmare essentially. Right, so that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna look at how to do this. It's not rocket science. So let's see how long you do, and let's see how how interactive you want this to be. Don't hesitate if you have. I see there's stuff in the chat, so I'm gonna start looking. Okay, it's just Elsin giving some. Yes, thank you for giving the. So the drive, I didn't put the stuff yet, but it's gonna be right after we're done today. Yeah, so again, I think I'm not sure if some more people joined after I started, so don't hesitate to stop me if you're following around, if you're starting things on your side. Again, I on purpose decided today to start from scratch so that if you want, everyone can follow along and even have try to make their own version of the workflow. Jihoon, I think you raised your hand. Do you have a question already?
Yes. Matthew, am I saying your name correct, Matthew?
You can say it however you want. Mathieu is the French version, but even Matt is okay.
Okay, I think I have a question about so it seems like the modularity thing. How does it work for the credit usage wise? Because I think for me, I have the 1 minute computing power, but then we're technically spreading apart these computing capability for different Grasshopper scripts, and then running those like parametric relations parallelly. But in terms of the computation, like time usage wise, how does it kind of work in different to like the original version of like having everything on the same canvas?
Yeah. So this question is about in case some of you are already premium ShapeDiver users. I mean, with free accounts you can do any computations up to 30 seconds. I think Jihoon, you have workflows where you have even longer computations and very complex things to do. The good thing about this approach is that, I mean, the way the credits work for these accounts is that above 10 seconds, the credits are based on how long the computations are, right? So if you're, whether you have this huge algorithm that takes longer to compute, let's say 1 minute, or if you have like 3 different algorithms that compute under 20 seconds, in terms of credit, it's going to be equivalent, right? So you're going to have credits for each of the different model you call, but since the computations are shorter, then it's going to be equivalent in terms of credits consumption.
Gotcha. So right now, one of the app that I've been trying to develop with the app builder feature is that the computation time goes over 1 minute. So the workaround way, what we were doing was that we were hosting a modular Python script in our company server, and then just doing an API call instead, just to keep the computation time lower than 1 minute. But then if we tend to break this apart and then have several modules in the ShapeDiver server, and keep all those modules below the computation time limit of 60 seconds, then it would work. And it's not necessary for us even to give an API call in our company server, right? Is that correct?
I think that's going to help you simplify your workflow for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So let's see. We'll see today. I'm going to show everything that's possible. You'll see that there's, you cannot connect models in any way for now. We're going to improve and work on these features more. But right now, for example, you can only have one level of interaction, right? So you cannot chain more than two models together. You can have one controller model calling as many models as you want, and you can loop back data from this controller model to the so from these children to the controller model, right? So you can already like this chain things together, but it always have to go back to the main controller model. And that's what we've seen is that at least from the use cases and the workflows we've seen, it's solving most of the issues. But it might be that if you already have complex situations, that you might need, a bit other features that we are working on now, so we can always discuss, of course, if there's anything missing.
Gotcha.
Right. So today I'm gonna walk now through a very simple model. I'm gonna walk through everything that's possible with this feature, and then we can see how this can be extended in the future still.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So I'll, as promised, I'll start from a blank canvas, which is never without stress, but I think that's going to work out because I'm really going to start simple. I'm not, I'm cheating a bit. I'm not completely starting from a blank canvas because I'm going to remove this again. And I'm going to start from this definition. I'm going to use it for instancing in my example. So just this very, very simple box model, just a couple of parameters. And as I mentioned, here just one display component to display the geometry. And I have here, and we'll see, it's going to be towards the end, so I'm not going to mention this too much for now. I have one direct data output. That's also one of the ShapeDiver components. And this data output is what's going to be used to loop back data to the controller model so that we can use it in the algorithm to make more complex algorithms or even display data or whatever about the instances in the main. But that's gonna come towards the end. At first, we're gonna look at the basic, mechanism of how to instantiate one instance with different transformations, separate instances, and we're even gonna look at how to go a bit deep in controlling, if you have a lot of instances, controlling parameters of a specific instance by making use of dynamic parameters. Okay, so here I'm gonna keep that in the back. So we have those 3 parameters. I won't need to name this specifically. I could, if we want to look deeper. Okay, in my case, I just have one piece of geometry in this instance. If one wants to control, select, or interact directly with specific parts, specific pieces of geometry in a child instance, I could give a name here to this and use the name attribute to differentiate the different pieces of the scene. But in this case, I think we have enough on our plate with just one piece of geometry in the instance, so I'm going to leave it like this. So this one, I'm not going to upload it again because I showed it, it's already here. So if you're making a very simple version of this on your side, it's going to work the same. Here's my, actually, I mean, both would work. It doesn't matter if I have the app components or not, but I'll keep with the one I had here with my 3 parameters, my data output here. And now I'll start playing with this. So I'll start a new definition. And what we can do is start with something very simple. I'm gonna say, okay, I want to create, to create a sort of group of boxes, right? And I'm gonna have here in my controller the logic to place them and to build something around them, right? But the logic to build the boxes. So, and again, let's keep in mind that it could be something super complex, but in our case, it's a box. Is gonna be in child instances. All right. So here, whatever, I'll just keep the standard repartition here. I'm just gonna limit how many I can show. So between 1 and 10. I'll add a seed just so we can see different examples in the scene. And yeah, okay, that's it, right? And what I can do is, first of all, actually, I'll just define a rectangle explicitly. And I'm gonna at least display something from this controller model. So I'm gonna display a sort of floor around the different objects that I'm gonna add to the scene. So just probably have to mesh this.
Can I request you to please turn on your component names so we can reference?
Yeah, let's do that. You prefer, I can work with just the names.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I also have the bifocals, which I tend to prefer. It looks a bit cleaner, but
oh yeah, of course.
That's okay too. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so all right. Yeah, I'll give this a color just so that everything doesn't look so gray. Okay. Okay, and now I have this set of points and a floor, and I want to just build an app where I'm gonna also place boxes stored in my separate ShapeDiver model. And to do this, I'm gonna I have to build an app, right? So it's a feature of the app builder. So even if I didn't want to build my own layout and stuff, this is the minimum I have to do, is to start an app. The first version, I'm not even gonna add any containers. So the app is just gonna contain the viewer, right? And what we'll use, so here, even if you've used the app builder, you might not have used the 2 other inputs of this component, right? So the containers are the basic ones to add containers and show parameters and show different things. But here there's 2 other inputs. The parameters input that allows to define what we call dynamic parameters, so virtual parameters, so parametric parameters, if you want, right? That don't exist in the definition, but can be instantiated from the state of the definition. We're going to look at this in a bit. That's the most complex part of the workflow. But for now, we're going to look at the instances input of the app, which is the input you can use to define other instances that should be part of the app. So on top of this one, so the one where the app component here we call the controller session, right? So it's going to be the one orchestrating a bit the different ShapeDiver sessions. And here we're gonna say, okay, we want to also include other ones and use them in the final application. And the way to add an instance is to define it using the define instance component here, right? And to including it in the app. Right, so at the basic level, that's all we have to do. And now we just have to define, okay, well, the obvious first thing to do is how do I define which ShapeDiver model I want to use and include here. And this is the feature that's why we're using the development branch of the app builder today, because it's not released. Before that, it was a bit difficult. You had to create a theme file and reference the different addresses of different ShapeDiver models, and then use this to reference it in your app. But now we made it much simpler. You can just copy the URL of your model, any model you have, and it doesn't matter if you're using different backends or whatever, just the URL of the model. All URLs on ShapeDiver are unique, so that's always going to work. And you send it to the first input of this component, the session ID here. So that's the first one. You can give the instance a name. For now, we don't need that, but we'll look at that a bit later. Again, that's the most complex part of the workflow. And then for this instance, again, I'm not going to do that now. You can include parameter values, right? So obviously, we're calling another Grasshopper definition. And when you instantiate it, when you bring it in the definition, you can decide the values of the parameters that exist in this definition. So we're going to do that after too. For now, the only thing I want is to do the first thing we wanted, which is, okay, here I have my scene, I have my points. I want to place several boxes at the points I defined. And to do this, we're going to define what you have to do is, so I'm creating a single instance for now, right? And in this single instance, I'm going to define a list of transformations where the geometry from this instance is going to be transformed in this definition, right? So I took care in this definition to actually, it's not super clean. I should have centered this completely. So the origin is here, right? But that's like the default position of this. And now I can move, so create transformation, move transformations at the different locations of these different points. And I'm sending the transformations here. And now I created an instance. So it's just a single instance. That's going to be instantiated with the default parameters because I didn't define any. And it's going to be transformed at all the different locations that I defined here. So I'm going to save this.
There's a question on the chat.
Okay.
They cannot see define instance component.
Yes.
I think you mentioned that we need to update plugin, but is it something else? Could be might be something else.
I think it can only be that.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be, actually the define instance exists since 2 or 3 versions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But for today, we really need the last version, the 1.29.2. So if you
Matthew, the question I have is that I do have the define instance, but I cannot see the input OA, which is the last input parameter for the component.
Yeah, that only exists in the very last
I will try installing the latest one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we will use that as well, but again, a bit later. So, okay, so yeah, as I said, I'm gonna just, did I just do this? No. Okay, so.
And can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So this one that you have defined, the instances, it's just one instance, right?
It's just one instance, yeah.
Yeah, so this is not the multiple instance one because we're just translating that one instance through the whole
exactly.
Like flow.
Exactly. Okay. So that's just for optimization purpose, right? You can define a single instance if you want the same, the same geometry, the same version in several locations, instead of calling different ShapeDiver models in the backend, right? We're just calling one, and the viewer reads the transformations and places the different instances in different locations. So that's what's gonna happen here when I upload it. So here again, in the old model view page here, one only sees the flow I created. But if I open the app, and again, if I open the app and go to development, apologize about this this work in progress step. Exactly. So here I have my points. So that's the default location of those points, right? And I am calling this other ShapeDiver model, right? And all of these different boxes are instantiated with the default parameters that I have in my model. Right, so in total here, we have two ShapeDiver models. The main one, the controller that contains the floor, and we're calling one time, and we are spreading the contents of this ShapeDiver model in different locations in the scene. So that's actually the next step, right? So that's again, I'm trying to go not too fast so that we see all these different concepts one after the other. So as you've rightly pointed, right now we only have one session, and all of the different versions come from the same session and come with the same parameters. And before we're going to look at how to create different sessions, I'd like to again do this step by step. So let's see, okay, what if I want to instantiate this model but with a different set of parameters? To do that, I'm going to use the parameter values input. And in this input, we can use the parameter value component of the app builder here, which is just a helper component that allows to to create what we call a payload in developer talk. So it's essentially a list of parameters and their values, right? And so I'm going to send it here. And I'm gonna trying to keep this organized. But, so here I can, to create a parameter value, what I need mostly is the name of the parameter and the value of the parameter. So here, let's say I'm gonna set two parameters. So I had width, height, color. So let's say I'm gonna set the height and the color, right? Height. Again, exactly the name that this parameter has in the other ShapeDiver model I'm calling. And this is, for those of you who already work with App Builder, this is, an issue that's also there when you build the app and you add parameters and stuff. What we want to improve is sort of, profiling and checking that you don't make typos or that the names, a stronger link between the parameters that are referenced and the definitions. For now, it's a matter of just paying attention and making sure, okay, the names that I'm referencing exist in my Grasshopper definition, and that's gonna work. So here I have two parameters, and I can call them with two different values. In this case, I do have to be careful. I have here those are integers with a limited number of values, so I have to send a value that exists. What I would recommend, and we can do in the future, is use text inputs and text outputs, which are untyped, and then you can just send anything, and it gives more flexibility. But here, I'm just gonna, okay, I know what my limits are, so I'm gonna send a height, for example, that's 2, and color, so here, any other color. And that's already enough that if I upload this, right, so I still only have a single instance. And for this instance, I defined a list of parameters that I want to override and a list of transformations. And if I upload this, and if I did not do any mistake, we're gonna see pretty much the same, but with a different version of the box model that I'm calling. So upload, save, open the app, development, a few steps, but here we are. So same situation, different parameters called when instantiating the model. And you can already see, and we're going to do this a bit later, but obviously this is not set in stone, right? So you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can bring these parameters further. You can actually add parameters in your controller model, right? So I could add here a height parameter. That's not what I want here. So let's say a height parameter between 1 and 10, and use it to control, not here, sorry, use it to control here, right? And now if I add this parameter to my app, then I'm going to be able to control the value of the height of all of these transformed instances, right? Maybe I should do that first before starting to instantiate several instances. Yeah, let's do it like this. So I'm gonna I'm gonna now start actually building an app around my viewer. And for now, I'm just gonna add those 3 parameters here, right? So count seed height in one container on the right. So nothing new here. Parameter, adding 3. So what did I have? Count. Seeds. And it's okay, so now we can already do something, at least once this is uploaded. I think I've seen some more chat messages. So Elsin, if you can check once in a while and tell me if there's more questions, since I don't see them.
No problem. If any questions comes, also we're a small group. You can unmute and ask questions here too.
Yeah, you can directly ask. Yeah. Please interrupt me. That's I also actually do the things that take a bit of time, so there's some time in between my rants to talk and ask questions. Okay, so now
I think I have one more question.
Yeah.
Why is there a reason that we're using transformations instead of points when we are, attaching instances? Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's more information in a transformation, right? So in this case, I'm just doing a move. So sure, a point would be enough, but I could use I could rotate them and even scale them.
Oh, I see. So each one of them could, okay,
It
I
could be
understand.
rotated, scaled. I mean, you could do it if you go back to the if we go back to the I can always once in a while go back to it because it's true that the example we are looking at is, I'm trying to stay very simple, but here you add, I'm not scaling, but at least those windows here, they're rotated, right? They're placed and rotated.
Oh, I
And
see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's the same for the balconies, right? They're actually also scaled, rotated. I mean, a lot happens there, right? So yeah,
So
so
you
the
mean,
transformation lets you do everything you want, essentially.
so you mean that if you wanted, you could make the balconies one instance, but just scale them. So it would still be the same instance, but it would just be scaled
Yeah.
1D. Okay.
Yeah, so that would work for this balcony, right? It
Yeah.
depends what you have for the other balcony with the rails and stuff. Obviously, then
Yeah.
it scales the details too, and that doesn't work, right? So if you have complex way to scale a balcony, then it has. But yes, in theory, if you have the kind of geometry that is simple enough that works for you, then you could just scale, rotate, and do what you want with it, and already have super complex things without calling a lot of different instances. Yeah.
Okay, I think I understand now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's see. So if I now update, right? So here, same thing. So it's when I do this, right? It calls every time two. Well, this one with the height just calls the child instance, right? Where I have my box, and places it 5 times. But the seed one calls 2 definitions every time, right? So it calls my parent definition so that the populate 2D has a different seed and places points in different location, and then it calls my child definition that computes again the boxes in this position. Okay, so that's how to control. So we've seen just very simple. If you have parameters from the children definition that you want to control from the parent definition, then you can just create those parameters and link them to the parameter values you send there. Those don't have to be static. You can update them every time. So that's already shows a bit next level of how to organize things together. But now let's say what I want to do is something a bit more interesting. I'm going to remove the height parameter.
Matthew, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So for the define instant feature, is there any capability that might be doing something, catching the parameter on flight, like a dynamic parameter?
Yeah, I mean it works with dynamic parameters, right? So I'm not sure if I understand exactly what you're asking, but I think what we're gonna do next is gonna answer your question. So
okay.
Yeah, let's look, and if it's still unclear a bit later, then you can ask me again.
Yep.
So because now I'm gonna show how to instantiate instances with different parameters, and then I'm gonna show how to control each of the instances we have with specific parameters related to this one instance. So I think that's gonna do the trick. I'm gonna turn on my light because it's getting really dark here. All right. Okay, so I'm removing, right, I had this height parameter here, and it was essentially controlling all the different transformed versions of my instance. Now I'll try to do something different. I'll still have instantiate my boxes from the controller session, but I would like all my boxes to have different heights and colors, right? And to do that, I'm not going to be able to have a single instance. I'm going to have multiple instances. So to define multiple instances, I could just now, let's say if I want to have 2 different boxes with 2 different heights, and I could copy my define instance component, call the same URL, add it here, and that's 2 instances, right? But here, we have a parameter. I already want to go one step further because we have a parametric number of points here. So I have a parameter. I don't know how many instances I'm going to have in my model. So I want, ideally, I'd like to be able to use a tree structure, and with a single define instance component, be able to define multiple instances. So what you can see here is that in the case of defining a single instance, right, I'm giving one ID, so the one URL of one of my models. I would give one name typically, but the parameter values and the transformations here, they are list access, right? So I can send a list of parameters and a list of transformations, and I still create one instance with all these transformations and all these parameters. So in order to create multiple instances, I'm going to have to go one step above and send a tree, and each branch of my tree will create a separate instance here. So the tree is going to be at the, I can create it already at the level of the parameters I sent. So let's say I'm going to have, so I have 5. So in terms of heights, I'm going to have random. So let's create random numbers in the range of, okay, so again, I'm not doing this super clean. I could put some checks here, but okay, those two are between 1 and 10 here. So I'm gonna create random numbers in the range of 1 to 10, and I'm gonna create 5. Yeah, and I could have a different seed here to. I'm not gonna have seeds at all level. Actually, I'll just connect the same seed, and then you can see. Okay, so here I have 5 random numbers between 1 and 10. Actually, I think my model is an integer, so I'm gonna round them. And I'm gonna send them here. And for colors, actually, I thought earlier I could do this. I can create a gradient. And I'm gonna create a gradient. So between 0 and 1, and parameter, and also between 0 and and count. Okay. And what do I want? I want a series. No, I also want random numbers. I want 5 random numbers. 0, 1, no, between 0 and 1. Okay, 0 to 1. Okay, and now I have 5 random colors as well. All right. So now the only thing is that I need to create a tree. And to do that, okay, I have to graft here. So here again, that's not ShapeDiver specific, that's just tree stuff, and I can't go around some tree stuff. And I'm not really, I know you're not supposed to simplify and do all these things, but I'm not a tree master, so I'm just gonna do what works for me. But in this case, I don't need to simplify too much. I created pairs of parameter values, right? So I have, in each of my branches, I have a height value and a color value. And I send this as a tree here. And what I need is also to graft my transformations, so that here instead of having one single instance with a list of transformations, right, I have 5 different instances, each of them with 2 parameters set, height and color, and each of the instances, so corresponding to each of the branches, with 1 move, right? So in this case, I'm gonna create 5 separate instances. So I'm gonna call, it's the same ShapeDiver model, but it could be separate ShapeDiver models, right? But in this case, it's the same one, but it's actually gonna call different instances, right? So it starts different sessions of different models and return results corresponding to different parameter values and place them each with a different transformation in the scene. And I just have my seed parameter that controls everything, the colors, the positions and stuff. And I think that should work. I'm actually gonna try to save this as version 2, and we can have a look now. Always fun to juggle between windows when one works with Grasshopper, but so far so good. Okay, again, empty model, open app, development branch, and hopefully that works. Right? So again, just it's not to flex too much, but this is currently calling 6 different instances of ShapeDiver models. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6. And here, if I upload that, it's recalling all of this, right? So it's really, I can call more and create a sort of funky city, almost AC themed. I'll never get to create AC-based examples. But it's starting to look fun, at least. Yeah, so that's the way to, using a single defined instance component, create separate instances, right? So a bit of tree magic, but nothing too complex. And that works. So that's level 3, I think. Now we're gonna go a bit further and try to look a bit. So try to have a bit more control over what's happening in the scene. And again, this, in the case of this example, it might not make too much sense, but at least it's gonna, give you an idea of what's possible, right? So here in this case, what I'd like to do is instead of those, so I'll keep instantiating different instances of the model, but instead of sending, a set of random colors and random heights to the different instances, I'd like to be able to select each one of the instances in my scene and access its parameters and update the parameters of this particular instance, right? So again, if I know that I have 1 or 2 or 3, if I have a fixed number of instances in my scene, it would be easy to say I'm gonna create. Okay, so it's all sliders between 1 and 10 and colors. I could create, height 1, color 1, and connect this to my first instance, and then create a height 2 and color 2 and connect this to my second instance and do this and have all of these parameters. We could already, even if you add this and with different versions of these parameters, we could already maybe use a selection thing or some sort of logic, a value list in the app to only show, height 1 and color 1 and stuff, depending on what you want to play on, right? So hide the ones that are not used and only show the ones we use. But it's still not very clean, and it doesn't work if you have, again, like we are still looking at, I'm just going to show the point when I talk. We're still looking at a, non-deterministic number of instances here, so that doesn't really work. So in this case, we're going to use a feature that's a bit older actually than instances, but I think in the context of instances, it really shows how powerful it is, and it's dynamic parameters. So I think some of you know a bit, some of you probably not. So I'm gonna, go around this concept and make sure that it's clear, because it's at the moment one of the most complex concepts, and actually that's why it doesn't really have its own components in the plugin yet. We're gonna add this when we think it's user-friendly enough to use. For now, it requires a bit of work with JSON objects. Okay, so the idea here is that I don't want to manually add, these static parameters in my definition. What I want is to create virtual parameters as many as I have instances, and show them in my app. And again, we can add logic to decide when to show them in the app or when to hide them in the app. But for now, I'm gonna create them already, and let's say we just add them. I dump them all in the scene together. So here I'm gonna go back and copy what I had because it's, yeah, just for the sake of making this interactive, I'm gonna try to do this from scratch also, and hope everything works for the best. So the way to create dynamic parameters, since they don't have components yet, is to create JSON objects and to include them in the app here using these parameters input. So I'm gonna to do this, the easiest, if you've already manipulated, or if you're used to manipulating JSON objects in Grasshopper, you can use whatever plugin you like, as long as it's supported on the ShapeDiver servers. We love to use Swiftlet, developed by one of our beloved members of the core studio team. But sometimes to do quick and dirty JSON objects, it's a bit more work with Swiftlet because it's very structured and organized and stuff. So I like to use JS1, but I could actually, yeah, but if I don't do that, it's not. I could just in a text panel create a JSON object with most of the properties I need, but I think with JS1 is the easiest here. So I'm gonna do it like this, and here I'm gonna create the definition of a parameter, and the parameters that I can define here are defined exactly the same as parameters in the normal parameters in ShapeDiver are defined. So here it's a bit more advanced, but I'm gonna look in the console here just to show you. Yeah. So just to show you a bit how it works, behind the scenes. So here I'm looking, using the viewer API at what's in my scene. I can access everything, the parameters, the inputs and stuff. But here I have two parameters, and those are two sliders, which is good because I'm gonna actually I'll simplify it. I'll just create sliders for all the different boxes. And this is how a slider is defined with these different properties, right? So everything that you need to define a slider and represent it in the web application. So in the case of a slider, for example, here I have 0 decimal places because they're integers. I have the min and the max of my slider. So min 0, max 100 for the seed, I guess. Its name here, seed, right? That's the name I gave it in Grasshopper directly. Its value, the default value also it comes with when I start my session. So that's everything, and the type here. So I don't need all of those. There's some of those are I can do without. But at least what I just showed here to define a slider is the minimum, right? I need to define a name, the type, so it could be float or I'll stick with integer in this case, the min and the max, and the default value and the value. So I'll go here and define the properties I just mentioned: name, type, min, max. I think default value is called defval, the property, and value. I think for a slider that's enough. Okay. So now our goal, if you remember, is, okay, let's say I'm not going to do the colors, otherwise I'm going to lose too much time. So I'll keep random colors for each of the instance, and I'll just make the height of each of the different boxes controllable, right? So I'm going to remove that, and instead I'm going to send the value of these virtual sliders I'm creating. So I need to give them a name, each of these sliders. What I can do is say I'm gonna call them height underscore, and yeah, here's my series. So from 0 to counts. I'm gonna add a panel here so we see as I build this dynamic parameter. Okay, so for now I'm gonna remove some here for the example. So I have 3 different objects now with the name property sets. I want all of them to be integers, so I'll keep integer here. Then min and max, so it's a height, right? So it's what we already saw. I think I might have to convert this just to be sure. I put an integer here. So min 1, max 10. Default value, let's say 5. And now is the tricky part, right? I have to send a value for this for these sliders. And of course, the value of these dynamic sliders, I have to read it from the app, right? So the idea is that here I'm going to create parameters in my app here that don't exist in Grasshopper, right? Because they are contextual, right? They're parametric parameters, essentially. So they don't exist in Grasshopper. Users will be able to control them, but obviously I want that when a user updates one of them, that it updates my definition, right? So that I get this value and I can update the results in my definition according to it. And here, that's part of the part of this feature that's still beta, right? It's not, it doesn't have the final components here. So the way to do it for now is to add a direct text input called App Builder. App Builder with a big A and a big B all together. And if you add a text input like this to your definition, it's going to send you the values of all the, essentially it's going to send you a JSON object containing all the names and values of the different dynamic parameters you have in your definition. I'm going to, I think, just, yeah, exactly. Here I had my example, several things. So here's when I work with these features now, and I think even with the final version of these features, it's gonna always make sense to work with local examples of how this works. So here I have just to make it clean, this 3. Okay, so that's an example of JSON object that the app is going to send me back every time parameters are updated in the app. It's going to send me the list of parameters that have been updated by the user and their value, right? So here, what I need to do is a bit of parsing. I can use again any JSON plugin you like to work with. In terms of parsing here, it goes quite well. So again, that's empty in my local work environment. This text input is empty, and that's why I have this one just to do some testing as I work. So I'm parsing the JSON object, and I can access the key, and let's say, so if I wanted the value of the height 1 parameter, right? So here, if I access the height 1 key, it's giving me the 2, and then I can send the value here, right? In my case, I have, again, a dynamic number of parameters. Here it's good, I have the count 3 for testing with 3 here in my example. So what I want is, well, essentially the same. Here I can reuse this concatenate component here. I'm accessing all the different values and sending them here. And I might have, again, I don't know why I worked with integers, which is constrained, but I might have to make sure this is an integer to not break anything. Again, all of these concerns with JSON and stuff in the final version are going to be much simplified. But I think it's useful to see this already, how it works, because this sort of looping, it introduces the concepts of how do I synchronize the state of my app with the state of my Grasshopper model, right? It's not trivial. Okay, so now, if I'm not mistaken, I create all my dynamic parameters and I can add them to my app, and JSON object to app with the parameter definition. Okay, they're invalid, which means maybe I'm missing important properties. I need an ID as well. Okay, which is not something we have to be concerned with. This is again gonna go in the final components, but as long as you put the ID the same as the name, then that works for now. Okay, and now it works. So I have my part. So the definition of the dynamic parameters is there. What I still want is to add them to my interface. I'm just gonna, again, since it's not the final version of what I want to do, I'm just gonna dump them after those. So I still have count and seed here, and I'll add again, names are here. I have to make sure to flatten this. That works, right? So I'm just dumping all the parameters in the same container, just to now make sure it works. One thing that's important when working with local data that I keep forgetting when I upload is to make sure my direct text input is here. And now, yeah, they have default values. Okay. Okay, so yeah, by default here, I don't, when I load my app, the parameters don't exist still in this text inputs, but that's fine because I set default values for all the parameters here, so they're gonna be set anyways. So let's see. I have to say I'm not 100% sure this is gonna work as expected, but I think so. So let's upload this. Save.
Yes, development. I was about to say.
Thank you for paying attention. It was a test. But I think there's still an issue because, yeah. Again, because of the dynamic parameters. So let me fix that. And making mistakes is the best way to learn. or to remember. So I'll go back to my definition. So that was not right. Okay, so the dynamic parameters have their own session ID. I'll double check that's how I did it here. Yeah, exactly. So I actually am gonna add them separately. Okay, so those are actual parameters in my definition. Bring them here. But dynamic parameters, I have to set the session ID to default app builder. Again, beta version. So all of this is not so important in the long term, but that's what's needed now to make this work. So up. Okay, and now I'm setting my height parameters here, so they're still together. Okay, making sure it's a clean list, and that should work. If it doesn't, we're gonna take a quick break because we're at half time anyways. I mean, we're gonna take a quick break in any case, whether it works or not.
I was about to say we are like wherever you want to break. Is it naturally right now that we're in the middle, but wherever that's sounds better for you.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Let's check if it works, and if it doesn't, then I have the break to figure out why it doesn't work. So that's also good. But that should be good. Yeah. But something still does not work. So I have to check. Yeah, invalid parameter. Okay. There's a clear, at least number is outside allowed limits. So that should be easy to fix. So let's have a quick break now. We're gonna, after the break, we're gonna make this work, obviously, this version, and then we're gonna go a bit further and mix this with other features, so that with the selection feature, to get to an example a bit like what I showed at the beginning with the facade, where I can select things and then see contextual parameters. So really to round up this this example. So on the one hand, we're going to do that, and on the other hand, we're also going to see how, for now we've seen that this sort of one directional direction between the controller and the child instances, but for a lot of workflows, one needs to loop back data from the child instances in the controller and create, more complex logic. So we're going to also see that. So essentially, that's like the 2 points we're going to look after. And I think we're going to be done in time, with even maybe half an hour at the end for some questions and running up the session. Yeah.
How long you like to break?
I'm not sure how long people need, but let's say we can start again in about at 45.
Okay.
Right, so in 12
whoever
minutes,
is
right?
the local time is 5:45 your local time.
Yeah,
ET
so for
is
you it should be
11:45. Is it correct?
exactly 11:45. Let's do that. All right.
All right, perfect.
So see everyone in a bit. Bye bye. Okay, so if everyone's here, let's get going. So I had done well, I had forgotten something simple. I mean, I thought the issue was here because by default here I send null values, and I thought it was an issue, but actually that's ignored, so that's not I mean, here I could add some a check. Let's say that if I don't send parameters, so let's say I can check for null here, right? So if I don't send anything, I could make sure to send the default value, which is this one. Wait, no, null is 1, so here instead of the right here, no, I think 1 second. So, okay, if it's true, it's 1, that means it's null. So if it's null, I want to send my default value. Otherwise, I'm sending this. Yes, exactly. Okay, so that works. So here in this case, I send the default value if we don't send any parameter. So, but actually that's not even necessary. So it's just, you know, for the sake of completeness. What I missed is more obvious, right? So I created, now I have my dynamic parameters. They're created with all of their properties and stuff. And actually when I was uploading, we could see that they were here listed, but these parameters were not connected to anything. So essentially, I'm getting the value back. So if, you know, even if users were updating in the app, I get the value back and I make sure it's updated in the definition, right? So I have this, I close this loop for the dynamic parameters, but I'm not using the value to do anything else, which was the whole point of creating them, right? So now the point was that the value of these parameters defined by the users of the app, of the final app, I want to use these values to send them to the children, to the child instances, right? So to set the actual height of each of the instances in my scene. So that means I need to loop them here, right? But here that's the same problem. So I have actually by default here I have null, and that's gonna make a mistake. So what I should do, how did I just did that during the break. I should, okay, that's not the clean way I had done during the break, but fine. I'm just gonna repeat the 5 here. Count. Do I only have one more? No, no. Okay. All right, so here I have a list of 5s. Okay, so that still works. And here I'm sending this, right? So I'm either sending 5, the default value that I defined here. It's getting a bit intricate here. I should reorganize this, but whatever. Yeah. So I'm sending the 5, or if values come from the app sent by the users, I'm sending the values sent by the users, and then I'm sending. So that's what we see. So in the first part of the workshop, I'm using this in the define instance and with the parameter value component to send those values. Here, I think, just to make sure, I'm not sure those trees are clean. Looks like they are. Okay, I fixed this in a different way during the break, so now I'm a bit scared, but the trees seem to be clean. Everything seems to be clean, so I'm gonna try to upload this. And hopefully it's doing what I want now. All right. I can breathe. So now it loaded correctly. So if you remember, we still have our count and the seed. So that's and you see now the dynamic nature of those parameters. So now I have 7 different sessions. And it looks like I hit too much use on the server a bit currently. Let's see, or did I? And maybe I did mistakes too. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, there is still a mistake. My apologies. So why is that? Here, those out. Okay. That's where the trees was. Okay, so here is where I have to simplify my trees. Otherwise the branches don't fit. So here I have one, yeah. And I'm gonna simplify my transformations as well. And then I have clean single-digit branches everywhere, and I don't have to think. Okay, so one last attempt. I save, yeah. And that's not gonna work because I did that again. Okay, one more time. Save. Okay. That should work. So count. All right. I kind of list our servers for no reason because they can handle as many sessions as we want, right? Different seeds. And here the heights, as you can see, are not random anymore. They are linked to our dynamic parameters. So that means I can control individually each single instance and give it the height that I want. Like this. Okay, so we made it this far. I think that was the hardest part, the dynamic parameters part. So again, if you have questions, don't hesitate. I know it's a must, and actually, I will really reorganize and clean up these definitions before I put them in the folder. But yeah, so we can see how now we have separate instances. And again, in this example, I'm limiting myself to a single ShapeDiver model. But if you remember, right, instances, of course, can be from different models, right? So the facade example with the windows and the balconies was, of course, defining separate instances for separate ShapeDiver models. So now what I wanted to add, it's a bit of an cosmetic update, but I think it fits well with everything we did here. So just to give an idea of how, you know, with the dynamic parameters especially, and with all these like UI that responds to the current state of the full workflow, Let's say that instead of dumping all of these parameters in my definition together, it could be that I have a workflow with hundreds of different parts, different objects, etc. What I want is instead to only show a single parameter corresponding to one instance that I select directly in my in the scene. And to do that, I can use, again, that's like a slightly older ShapeDiver feature that's been here for a while, the selection input. And some of you might have used it, but you might not know, since we're talking about brand new stuff, that it works also with instances. So here, if I add a selection input called select box, let's say, I'll be able to make objects in my scene selectable, even if they're in child instances. And in order to be able to reference the child instances, I have at least to give them a name. So that's the thing that I did not do at first, which I will do now. So now, right now, they don't have a name, but I'm going to name them. And I'm going to follow the same scheme. So I'm going to, again, concatenate okay, the same series with box, for example, underscore. I'm gonna graft and immediately simplify and send those names, right? So now I have branches where each of the instances with the different parameter sets and the different transformations, each have a different name, box underscore the name. And if you've already used the selection input before, you know that you can select things that are in outputs or in display components. If you name the display components, and then you use name attributes inside, and you can use the dot separated scheme to really like specify specific parts of the scene that you want to be selectable. So that still works under the instance name, right? So I could reference a specific instance and then specific display component in this instance and specific objects in display component. So really fine-grained tuning. In my case, I just want the entire contents of my display component to be selectable. So I can just here in the name filter say, okay, I want any of my boxes, so box underscore star, the wildcard, to tell my selection input that I want all of the instances in my definition that start with name box underscore, so all of the boxes, to be selectable individually. And as usual, when using the selection input, I'm gonna keep it simple. There's just one object selectable, so it's always gonna send one name, right? So for example, let's say I have my test object box 2. It's gonna send names with this scheme, right? It's gonna send, okay, if I clicked on the second box in my definition, it's gonna send box 2 to tell me the user selected this object, right? So now I can, what I can do is parse a bit so again, I'm gonna connect this, right? But I'm using my test object for now to make sure everything works. I'm gonna split here. Again, here I don't have to do some tree gymnastics or anything. I just have one name. So if I do this and I take the item 1, it's always going to be the index of the box I selected that I return, right? So in this case 2 in the context of my text object. So now what I can do is, well, I'm not doing much in this case. The only thing I do is that in my app, instead of including all of the height parameters, I'm just going to include the one from the box I select. So height underscore 2. By default, I'm not going to have any box selected, which means it's going to send height underscore nothing. So it's going to send a name that does not exist. And I think that's fine. It's gonna maybe ignore it or throw an error, but still the app will still work as expected. So it's just not gonna show anything. So let's try it like this. So I'm connecting it actually. Select box, okay. Yeah, that should work. Let's save this as version 4, so I can attempt to make clean versions of each step later. And upload again.
I have a small question.
Yeah.
It's not possible to like locally check any of these features, right? Like we can't check it, any of the instancing. We can't
So what do you mean check?
of Grasshopper and Rhino if it is working.
Yeah, so that's something that we've been thinking about. So because you know that there's already a way to access ShapeDiver models from inside Grasshopper, right? Using the client plugin components, those components. So we could, if you're logged in from inside, so right, if you're logging your ShapeDiver account from inside Grasshopper, we could start adding checks. That's something we have on the list. To be honest, I think when you're working with app builders, there's already like a lot of simple things that we have to add checks for, right? Like, do the names of the parameters you reference exist? You know, some basic logical things. But yeah, the idea would be that, you know, at some point we add some basic checking to make sure that everything, you know, all the logic around instancing inside Grasshopper that you've implemented works. But yeah, that's you know, I think here in this workshop and you guys at Core Studio, you're among the early adopters of this feature. So happy to discuss whenever you start working with this, what, you know, what makes sense in terms of profiling tools we can add there. So, okay, development. So I think it works. The only thing is that I did not add my selection parameter to the interface. So I'm gonna add it here. And try again. Good. So I have my boxes. I can add a couple, move them. And now I should be able to select one, right? So I see now we have this new effect. It's not deployed yet. Again, it's just on development. Actually, there's a bug on my laptop. It doesn't look so good here, but it looks really good on other laptops I've seen it. So we're going to improve this, but it looks better than just changing the color of the items. And here I can select one of the boxes. And when I select it, I add to my interface the slider corresponding to it, and I can update it, right? So I can do that here, make this one higher, etc. You get the point. Okay, so that works. And now we can look at the last point, which is now, again, this was like kind of a detour with the selection and the dynamic parameters to improve a bit the whole setup of the app. But now we can look at the, yeah.
Just another question for this. It might be a little bit irrelevant from the stuff that we're doing, but when you hover over the selection box, it seems, you know, usually I thought the default setting was to highlight hidden like green or blue, and it seems like the boxes are glowing. Is that like a separate
Yeah,
custom?
that's something. That's because I'm on development. That's what I mentioned. So
Oh, okay.
we added new effects for selection, gumball, and stuff, right? And the idea is to make this one the new default. So, you know, changing color will still be available. It will be customizable from Grasshopper, but by default, it's probably going to use a version of this glowing effect.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
All right. So yeah, as I was mentioning, so back to Grasshopper and back to the last feature I wanted to show today about instancing, which is, again, I mentioned it briefly, the ability to loop back things happening in the child instances in the parent, so that it can be used maybe to loop between different instances, or to use this data in the parent definition. And in my case, what I'll do is that, so if you remember, that was the teasing from the very beginning of the session. I added here a direct data output called volume. So volume like this, and that just contains the volume. So again, it's not super interesting information, but you can imagine, you know, more complex workflows and complex pieces of algorithms that spit out data, and soon we'll add also support for geometry itself, right? So to look back geometry using our SDTF inputs and outputs. But for now, it's already available for data. And by the way, data means a lot of things, because you can transfer as data already breps, curves, and stuff, because they have a JSON description. But in this case, I'm just sending one piece of numerical data, and that's part of my child model, right? So it's there, it's named here, so I can use it. And now I'd like to go to my parent model, and I'd like to retrieve this data as it is in my app, to use it in my parent algorithm. And to do that, we have to use, and it might sound a bit intricate how to do this, but if you can see that it's something that will be used for, it's a feature that will be used in other contexts in the future, right? So essentially, the way it works is to use its output actions inputs in the defined instance component. And what this does is that when a child instance is updated, right? Because the parent instance cannot, everything happens in the app. So from the point of view, those are different rhinos in different servers and stuff, right? So the parent instance cannot know when one of the child instances is updated, right? But you can do it so that the app, when one of the child instances is updated, if the instance defines output actions, then it triggers actions that are looped back to the parent instance when an update happens, right? And in our case, what we want is simply that when this, I'm going to do that for all of the child instances now. When the child instances are updated, I want to trigger a set parameter values action. And the way it's going to work is, and again, I'm going to cheat and look at my own model. Yeah, that's actually, I still have to use a JSON object. Or do I still? Set parameter value. No, it should work. No, it's new properties. So for now, again, that's like that's one of the features that's still a bit in beta. So no components yet, just I'm just creating a simple JSON object. Again, there's going to be components to do that in the future. And it's using a set parameters values action. So in the future, it's going to be doable using the set parameters values and the parameter value component here. And just to make a quick parenthesis here, we've used the parameter value component today, right? Where I can specify the name of parameters and the values that I want to give them. But alternatively, to give a value to a parameter, I can also give it a source. And that's typically used in the kind of use cases that we're going to see now, but there's already other use cases that you can give. So for example, and here there's the documentation is in progress and stuff, but there's several sources you can give. So for example, I can give the source screenshot here to these components. And if I have a import bitmap component in my definition, and let's say I call a screenshot, I give the name screenshot. Value also. That's it. That's still okay, but that's yeah, that's what we still need to implement in the components. That's why I need to use the JSON object. But okay, that's just for the ID. If I do this, so in the near future, then setting this, triggering this action to update this parameter, instead of giving it a value, the app will know I want to send a screenshot to this import bitmap component, so that the app will take a screenshot of the viewer inside the app and send it as input so that I can use it here in the definition. So that's typically a feature that a lot of users have asked when they are building PDFs or exporting some sort of parts, bit of parts or stuff like that, right? And this source feature will be usable in different contexts. So again, also with model state, for example, if you're creating a model state in the app, you can loop it back and then include it. For example, if you send an email using the email export or whatever. And here, what I'm showing now is, again, not with the final components, but it's one of these instances where I'm setting a parameter in my definition, in my controller definition, the parent definition, and I'm setting it to the value of one of the outputs called volume here of my child definition, right? And I can do that here. The output called volume can exist in all of my different instances. All of the instances, if they have an output called like this, it's going to send it to the volumes input, right? So here, I'm going to double check with the trees and stuff. I'm never sure, but I think that all of my instances now should have this output action. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're right. So all of my child instances now will send back the value of this volume output, right? So now in my controller, I have access to this data. Actually, I'm gonna put it here to make sure I get it right. Yeah, it's here. Okay. So the idea is that it's gonna come and it's a bit add it up because yeah, okay, I'll just do it separately here. It's gonna come in this direct text input, so a bit like you can retrieve the value of dynamic parameters. And here I'm gonna get a JSON object containing all the different value of all the different volumes sent by the child instances. And I have to check again. I'm just gonna copy this again. That's where we're reaching the end of the workshop, and I'm not sure I'm gonna get this right if I don't copy this. So it's less interactive. Yeah. Okay, so the idea is that it's organized like this. Well, actually, I could have a test object. It's organized like this, that there's an object with properties containing to all the different names of the different instances I have, right? So if you remember, I name my instances box 0, box 1, box 2, etc. And inside so essentially, if we look at how to access one of the data, let's say in my box 1, I have an output called volume. This is a list. So like, in data outputs, you can always include a list of values. So it always sends a list. In my case, I only have one element. So the data I want is always in the 0 index, and then in a property called data. So this, for example, here is how I get exactly the value of the volume as it's sent. Again, we're looking at beta features, prototype version. This is typically all the things that we want to make easier with dedicated components that make it easy to retrieve this data, to look back the data, etc. For now, it's a bit of that. So here, what I want, okay, and here what I want to do, and that's what I copied here. I want to do something very very basic. Use one of the app builder features that's been in app builder for a while now, and do a round chart widget with the different colors of my different volumes, and with pie slices the size of the volume, essentially. So what I need is to send round chart data with the colors of my different here the colors of my different boxes, and in value using the same series once again here. Where do I have it? Colors, name, colors, and value. Value is null, so right now it doesn't work. But of course, when I upload the definition, so I could have a test object with the different values, but that's a bit long to set up now. But here, essentially, I'm parsing. So I'm looking at this JSON object. I'm getting all the box. Here I see box volume data, right? And I get as a list from all my child instances the value of the volume that's in it, and then I can add to my app these last widgets. And here, okay, here the name of the text input volumes corresponds to the name of the output action here I created, right? So I can loop now between the two. So I'm gonna save this last version. And let's see if I got it to work. So again, this last part is really about just making sure it's clear that this is possible, because for a lot of workflows, looping this data will be very useful. But again, I'm fully aware that this is still a bit intricate to use. But again, I'm going to clean the example and make sure it's as easy to understand as possible if you need to use this feature already. But yeah, if you missed some things at the end now, I understand completely. Okay, so development. Okay. And now we have released, so this widget created by the parent instance, but using data that comes from the child instances, right? So here, if I do this, then the data updates as expected. All right, and that's about everything I wanted to show today, and about exactly 2 hours and a half. So finished on time, and yeah, we can happy to stay a bit in case you want to discuss some points, or if you have specific questions about any part of the topics from today. But in any case, thank you for sticking with me for this time.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. It's always sharing the latest and the, you know, even if it is still work in progress, it's thank you for sharing with us. Do you know the kind of a plan for the release? Like currently, I think that in the plugin, you can make all these changes, but you still need to make sure in the app builder, you need to change the, instead of latest development. I think this is a trick. If anyone wants to hack next week for the hackathon, just a reminder of that.
That's gonna work for the hackathon, yeah. But I think for next week we're gonna push it. Well, actually, that's a good question. Well, actually, it doesn't have an impact. It already works on development, so for the hackathon, it's not gonna change so much. So I think we're gonna test a bit more and push the final version next week. So it's gonna be soon. But yeah, for the timeline of, you know, all the, so from what I showed today, what still prototype features, right, is these dynamic parameters. Actually, they've been here for quite a while, but since they're the most complex to use, right, because you need to create them and then to loop back their values inside Grasshopper. So we're trying to think of ways to make this as easy to understand and you know, as intuitive as possible in Grasshopper to use, because it's quite complex. So that's going to take a bit more time. But the very last thing I showed, you know, with the output actions and you know, looping back the value of the data from child instances, that should come pretty soon too. I'd say before the end of the year, that's going to be, you know, final components for this feature. So yeah, everything is coming together. I always try whatever is here, in case, you know, some of you are not aware. Actually, I added the link here now, the tutorial center, and I keep this quite up to date, including the beta stuff, right? So I don't have, actually I do have an example of controlling instances already there with all the different files and stuff. So that's something a bit more basic than what we looked at today. I'm gonna add examples. So, you know, again, this is the example that use the prototype features, so the dynamic sliders and stuff. I'm gonna add an example with the output actions as well. And so even if features are not completely, you know, officially released, there's always a way to test them, you know, and early test them using these tutorials here.
I have one high-level question. The instances cannot be nested, right? Currently, there is one controlling app, and they could be multiple instances. At the first example you show, beginning of the workshop, like the railings and the, but nested instances will be not possible. And also, I don't think about any example out of it, but there's a limitation to, we should maybe mention.
Yeah. So that's something that we thought about pretty early on, that chaining models together, right? So the high level idea is that you could see this as like a, you know, one level above Grasshopper, right? And Grasshopper has like units or modular units that you can chain together, you know, using almost a node-based system like Grasshopper itself. So from the start, we were motivated to go in this direction, but yeah, it comes with a lot of things to think about, a lot of risks, a lot of so we thought, okay, we're gonna do this first, this system of like controllers and instancing, and also note that with the looping back of outputs, you can already sort of chain. Right now you can only loop data, but once you can also loop geometry and stuff, you can use a controller model as like a sort of basis where you can chain one instance after the next, essentially, right? It's not going to be the most convenient. It would be more convenient to go towards chaining together. But again, how it works and how we make all of this work together is still a bit unclear. So we're moving a bit carefully with this. But yeah, once and if that comes, we'll let you know, of course.
I really love that you build slowly with us, like the complexity, the building all those instances, like, we see all the height parameters and said, okay, what will happen if we have multiple parameters or something? And then you edit a select box or something. It's very useful, helpful. I learned a lot. I hope that's the case for everybody.
Like whenever, even when I do a lot of support calls and stuff, and or tutorial videos or this kind of stuff is quite short. I think this format of the workshop is really good for that. And even I know the feeling also of feeling that it starts slow, especially if you already know a bit a lot of the features and stuff. But I think I'm quite sure by the end of the workshop, it was probably a bit too fast and a bit too too much information at once. So I know there's always a point where it gets complicated, but I think that it's good because it's also, especially if you record and share the recordings, it's stuff that people can reuse over time as these concepts are more understood.
Is there any questions from any participant? Can I ask you, can you go to the latest app so we can have maybe screenshots?
Yes. It's not super clean here. I could do this. So again, I didn't show if there's participants that have never used a builder, you can organize this better. So like I showed in different containers, but also in tabs. And we even have, I talk a lot. I don't know if there's more questions now. Please interrupt me, but in case there's not, I can even show so we're gonna push in the next few days. Here there's it's a test model with a lot of different things. But for now, under tabs, we only had the accordions opening like this. So and I know, for example, TT is using this a lot, and it can make interfaces a bit stacked with a lot of information sometimes. So we are adding an alternative now with actually what we call the stacks, right? So as opposed to accordions, where instead of opening an accordion, it replaces the components, right? And you can move back and forth. Actually, that's an old version where the animations don't work really well, but now it really, moves the data and can go back and forth. And I think in a lot of cases, it's a bit cleaner than using tabs and accordions in some interfaces. So yeah, just to say that the app I created is not so clean, but one can build clean interfaces.
Any more questions?
Not a question, but I just wanted to say it was an amazing workshop and I learned a lot, especially about instancing and stuff. And this is something that we could definitely use. So very, very excited to try it out.
Great. Thanks. Great to hear. Yeah. If you learn, you're one of the most power users, I think, of App Builder. So I'm happy if you learned also something. All right. But if there's no other questions, then I will slowly release everyone. Thanks a lot. I think everyone who joined from the start stayed until the end, so that's nice to see.